Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's edition of Roundabout Sports, presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. It is Wednesday, May the 3rd, 2023. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am the maestro, Jeremy Karp, and alongside me this evening, we have a plethora of special guests, and I want to give it up to my co-host. It's been a while since she's been here, but she's back and better than ever, our one and only Babs.
Hi, guys. How are you? Hope you guys are doing well.
Babs, it's great having you back on. How have you been?
I'm doing okay. Just been working a lot and trying to live the dream every day.
Absolutely. So, as you know, and as we all know, it's going to be a bit of it's a different mood, different type of episode of Roundabout Sports than we usually have, because we are going to talk over the course today about the newest inductees into the Cardinals Hall of Fame. We will be mentioning that, and we'll have Parker on for that. And there is your bestie.
Yay! Best friends already here.
There you go. Jared is back and better than ever. So we also will have the Cardinal Cowboy on today, and we'll be discussing with him more of his favorite memories with Mike Shannon. For those that don't know, he's a big-time Cardinal super fan. You'll always find him around with the giant hat and the World Series replica trophy. Also, I've gotten word Ray King will be on. He just messaged me, so he will be on later on tonight, so no worries there. And yes, Nick, absolutely. David Freese is one of the gentlemen who has made it to the induction into the Cardinals Hall of Fame for this upcoming ceremony. But like I said, this has been what's already been a rough season. It took a sad
Very.
turn when literally the voice of Cardinal baseball for over half a century, passed away. And that was it was reported about here at I-70 Sports this past Sunday on April 30th that Mike Shannon, the longtime Cardinal and basically a St. Louis icon, had passed away at the age of 83. He'd been dealing with health issues for a while. And, it's just, yes, Parker is going to be joining us soon to give his thoughts, and he's going to be talking about his favorite memories as well of Mike Shannon and delve a little bit into the Hall of Fame members we have. So actually, we're going to do that right now because soon we're going to be bringing in Jared. It'll be in about 10 or so minutes. We're going to have the Cardinal Cowboy on, and he'll be sharing with us some of his favorite memories. Eddie, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. It's always a pleasure. And folks, be sure to subscribe, follow us. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I mean, you'll find Babs and I down off Cherokee and Iowa Street this Saturday for Dynamo Pro Wrestling. But yes,
Yes.
let's bring on the one and only Parker being your Parker. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. Hey, Babs. Doing just fine.
Hi.
Yeah,
So go ahead, Parker.
I would say, Babs, we finally get a chance to meet.
I know. I am excited about that.
So
I am excited to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
It's always an interesting conversation.
Well, thank you.
Most definitely. So
No
Parker,
problem.
delve into us a little bit about the newest inductees into the Cardinal Hall of Fame.
How about that?
Before we get into our tribute from Mike.
Okay, we got 3 inductees. The fan inductee, of course, is David Freese, the 2011 World Series MVP, who inspired the now iconic phrase, "We will see you tomorrow night." But David, I mean, aside from that moment, I think David had a pretty solid career with the Cards. But I don't know. I mean, I think there were injuries here and there, but overall, I think he had a solid career. And remember, he was the guy they traded Jimmy Edmonds for. I mean, a lot of people, believe it or not, a lot of people were not too enthused about David coming to the Cards because they got rid of a really popular guy to get him. Now, the next inductee is also a fan favorite, Jose Oquendo, the secret weapon. He was with the Cardinal. He's been with the Cardinal organization for a long time, first as a player, then as a coach. And I think what he is now, he's a roving minor league instructor, something like that. He's not on the major league staff, that I know, but he is still with the organization, and he is still
I think he's at Palm the Palm Beach team in Florida. I think that's where he's at Jupiter. Right. I think that's where he's at.
Yeah, he's still assisting in the development of young players. So I'm sure any infielder that comes through the Cardinal system will be getting a tip or two from him over the course of their minor league life. But Jose was called the secret weapon because you could plug him in pretty much anywhere. I mean, it didn't matter. As a matter of fact, in 1988, he played all 9 positions that season. I mean, he even pitched, he caught, played all 3 outfield positions. It's been a while since anybody's done that. He never played all 9 positions in a game, but he did play all 9 positions during the 88 season. And our last inductee is Max Lanier. He is the veteran selection. He was an ace pitcher with the Cardinals. Won a couple of World Series with them during the 40s, during the World War II years. I mean, and Max Lanier is actually remembered because there was an attempt right after World War II to make the Mexican League the 3rd major league. And I believe the gentleman's name that was trying to do it was Carmen Pascual. And among the players they tried to sign for the Mexican leagues were an outfielder from the New York Giants by the name of Danny Gardella, and of course Max Lanier. And Max was banned from Major League Baseball for a couple of years because he jumped to the Mexican leagues. And let me see if I can pull up his career stats here. Okay, Max. Whoops. Oh, there he is. Yeah, Max Lanier, 1938 to 1953. Let's see. Here's his pitching record. His numbers weren't spectacular for the Cardinals, but you could call them solid, if you will. In 1943 in particular, he was 50 and 7 and led the league with a 1.90 ERA, had 123 strikeouts through 14 complete games. And unfortunately, the 1943 team lost to the Yankees in the World Series. He was on the 42 team as well with a 13-8 record. They won the World Series against the Yankees 4-1. And then 1944, he was 17-12 with a 2.65 ERA at 141 Ks with 16 complete games. And the Cardinals were a World Series winner that year over their crosstown rivals, the Browns. So, as I said, he tried to jump to the Mexican leagues in 1946 and was banned from MLB for a few years. Then came back in 1949, but in the 12 years he actually pitched with the Cardinals, he had 101 victories. So,
all right. Very interesting group for sure, Parker. I wanted to bring up this, as this is also a tribute show, and before I get your thoughts on your personal memories, you've been a Cardinal fan and a baseball historian for such a long time. I like the story Eddie shared with us. Mike Shannon killed his first deer on my brother's farm.
Oh, wow.
So find that a little interesting one. But Parker, before we bring on the Cardinal Cowboy, it's hit St. Louis hard, his passing, and
It hit
immediately,
me
what memories
because I
come to
had
mind
some
for you?
Sure. The first one it was at winter warm up in 2008, and I saw Mike, and I took my boys into his place. They were like 7 years old at the time, but I didn't care. I took them in anyway, and we saw Mike the next day. Oh, you've been to my place? Yes, I have, and I want to say that your people treated me very nicely. And then in winter warm, yeah, it was in the same winter warm up. We went back. I brought my boys back to Mike's place, and Mike came over to talk to us. And what was kind of special was, I don't know if you remember these guys or not. There were 3 Cardinal prospects eating dinner at Mike's place. One of them was named Joey Mather. He was an outfielder. Another was Chris Perez, a pitcher, and then another one was Brian Anderson. He was a catcher. So they came over after Mike came over. They came over and talked to us, me and my boys, and I don't know, my boys thought that was something special. I mean, these little 7-year-old kids, they didn't have to come over. They just came over because they wanted to. And then I think it made my boys' night.
Oh, I'm sure it did for sure.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I was saying.
I was going to say.
What about you? Those, what are some memories you have in store to kick us off with Mike Shannon?
Well, I think the iconic, 2011 home run that David Freese had, if you listen to him call that on KMOX, it is so awesome. And I know this is kind of like a little off the beaten path a little, but I actually enjoyed his little stories that he would incorporate with the games going on that weren't necessarily a part of what was going on the game, but I loved hearing his stories, and I could just listen to like baseball history forever because I just find it so interesting. And he always had a way of explaining things to let's say people that don't really know baseball, so they could really catch up and be there and know what's going on. And he just had a special way of doing that with fans. And I extremely appreciated that. I appreciated the stories that he used to tell and everything like that. So it's going to be really hard. And I know St. Louis is really hitting hard about it too. Not just baseball, just like the entire city itself. He did so much for it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And Parker, we're gonna have you on later on in the show, but for now, I'm gonna bring on the Cardinal Cowboy himself. He's been a longtime fan for over 50 years.
Of course.
And he and his late father, dear members of Cardinal Nation. And so Parker, we'll have you on soon, my friend. Thank you so much for talking to us about the newest inductees into the Hall of Fame, and we'll hear from you soon, my friend.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So now I'm going to bring on the Cardinal Cowboy, ladies and gentlemen, here to Roundabout Sports. How you doing, my friend?
Can you guys see me? Can you hear me okay? I've got my
earpiece in. I've got you loud and clear. I love it.
All right, yeah. We're in I built a home studio some time ago. You guys probably seen a little bit of the stuff we do. I full-time produce a TV show on ABC where we highlight leaders in the community. Been doing that for about 4 or 5 years, working with the judge, Mike Carter, the Cowboy and Judge show, and really learned how to produce a show and do everything you need and said, hey, man, I want to do my own thing now. I quit my job where I was doing real well, but I felt like this is a better way to help serve the community and get out there and do stuff. And boy, when you talk about the impact a guy like Mike Shannon has had on our culture, I wouldn't just say on our community, but on our culture, what an inspiration he has been. And as I start to retrospect, it was interesting the other day. I happened to be up in the stadium and I get invited to one of the suites and they said, I'll come up here and stop by. And I'm like, I'm not supposed to be up there unless I got a ticket. They're like, oh, we got extra tickets or whatever. I'm like, okay, I'll stop by. And walking out, and there went Mike right by me. And he waved at me. He says, hey, Cowboy or something. I just caught the end of it, but he definitely waved at me. Because we've talked a few times and done events at his location there, Mike Shannon's. And I kind of felt bad because I was like, I should go over and get another picture with him to kind of remember. Lord knows that we all didn't realize that might be the last time, you get to see somebody like that. And they kept on going with the golf cart. I went and talked to a couple of the police officers that I know that work there, that we always celebrate those guys. They're all part of what I think helped me to survive what I went through and overcame. And I think baseball had a lot to do with that, given a lot of people know I was in a coma years ago caused by a drunk driver that hit us. And when I was playing, finished up a soccer game in college and was playing baseball there too at Central Methodist. And just while the Cardinals are such an impact on our culture, our community, and this whole region, when you talk Cardinals Nation, so Mike will greatly, greatly be missed.
Without a doubt. And so, when was your first experience like meeting Mike Shannon? I mean, I know you had mentioned to me before we came on the air that you had been listening to him for over 50 years. But you had just mentioned about some of those encounters you had. What was the first one like for you, finally getting to meet a guy you listened to for so long?
I would say the first encounter I recall wasn't an exact meeting with him, but it was something I was doing around the stadium. And it's interesting because I don't get to hear it. I don't carry a radio in my pocket. My dad used to go to the
right.
games, so I wouldn't hear it. But my friends would text me afterwards and say, you were there with the foul ball or Fred Bird or something, and Mike's talking about you during the game a little bit. And it was like once every 6 months or twice a season at best. But it was those kind of, I just never forget, when you have Mike Shannon mention the Cardinal Cowboy, and I know it happened with a couple of the other announcers there, because I'm trying to create some excitement and fun and support my team. And every once in a while, somebody notices something about whatever I'm doing, trying to build up what the Cardinals stand for and what they do. And so that's my friend. That was kind of a neat interaction just to have, there's the Cardinal Cowboy. I'm not sure if the first time he even knew who I was or what I was really doing. He might just, who is this Cardinal Cowboy guy? What's going on here? But after 25 years of doing this, and I came up with 50 years because I'm about to turn 51. I know a lot of people think I'm in my 20s or 30s. That's kind of a joke, but I was fortunate as a kid to be surrounded by it. So I know as a child, my dad was listening to the radio. And so when that was being done in 1972, I was probably, the first year. I was born in May. So I literally from birth, I'm certain I was listening to Mike Shannon broadcast. Didn't really recognize when you're a half year old or a year old and get to be where you're 2 and 3. But I definitely remember, the biggest recollection I have is the 1982 World Series. And as a 10-year-old kid, that was like the biggest thing in the history of the world, and so that was just neat. And Mike Shannon, obviously a big part of that.
Without a doubt. Babs, I'm going to hand it to you for a little bit. It's just a pleasure having somebody as dedicated, loyal, and so near and dear to so many in the community as you, Cowboy. So I want to thank you so much for being on. Babs, I know you got a lot you want to ask about this. There's so much writing going on right now. So the floor is yours.
Yes. So how many times have you met Mike?
Okay, so I thought maybe you're going to continue to chat with me. That's cool. I'm doing a little video here so everybody kind of see what we got.
All right.
On my social media and everything. Got that going on.
Go ahead. How many times have you met Mike?
Oh, I guess I'd say it was only a couple times where I met him, and it was in a group setting kind of thing where we're all there together, and you kind of walk up and shake his hand, and it wasn't like a private meeting with Mike with just me and him, but there's a lot of charitable events and things around the stadium that you get to run into those guys and they join in and partake. So, I mean, I guess some of the most fun we would have was at his restaurant, because after the games, we shot our video we did our own version of Happy, right? Because I'm happy. And after understanding, yes. I did go to grad school for media stuff. So I'll never forget my media law said if you give credit and you're acknowledging it, because a lot of people like, what does Al Yankovic do, right? Completely
right, yeah,
legal.
Right.
I said, but I want to can I make my own version? Am I going to get in trouble? And they said, no, as long as you're giving credit and whatever you do. And we did that. So we made our own version of happy, because that's what I think life is about. You should be happy. As, people like myself, everybody goes through some big hurdle. I went through this coma that a lot of people hear me talk about, and still prove the world wrong and the doctors wrong, and they were saying what I wouldn't be able to do. But I felt baseball had so much to do with my ability to overcome, because of the skills I learned on the field, and what the Cardinals meant to me. And so we did a happy video, and I talked to my buddy who was the manager down there at the restaurant, and he's like, yeah, man, come on in. So we got a private video interview. Like, they weren't, I guess they were open, but there wasn't many people there during the day. And it's in the video. I've actually got it on the wall here behind us. I even queued it up. But yeah, you can see this behind me. If you can tell, that's my friend Jamie. Yeah. That's my friend Jamie, and that's me. And this is one little still shot. I can play the video of us inside Shannon's restaurant before all the changes they made, and they moved the location. He had another location already, but it was so neat to be inside of there, because literally, if you can tell in that picture, all along the wall is all these famous players and all these jerseys and trophies and just amazing artifacts from baseball, from Cardinal Nation. And just to be in that room with just myself and my co-star there on our little video, Jamie Z. I won't say her last name. She may not want. I'm sure she wouldn't mind. But Jamie Z. And it was just so neat. That was probably my favorite part of the video, because we went around Busch, and we went around. At that time, Ballpark Village wasn't around, and so it was really neat to have to do that video and inside of Mike Shannon's restaurant, which there's just decades. When you would walk by, I guess a couple of times I interacted with Mike a little bit. They would do the post-game show in Shannon's. And you would walk by on KMOX, and you could walk by and you could wave to him and say hi to him, but they would just be sitting at a table with their radio set up, talking about the game and talking about the Cardinals. And you'd be able to come up to him on breaks and say hi and get a picture or whatever. I mean, just that establishment had so much history to it. It's pretty amazing, and just kind of represents what Mike stood for and so much of what he brought to the Cardinals.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that I really like. I like it whenever they're humble and they remember where they used to, be whenever they were in our shoes, kind of. So I just think that's really awesome that he was like that with you. And what's the first memory of baseball that you remember Mike calling that changed your life, so to speak?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to, you would always hear it's Jack Buck and Mike Shannon. And then who was speaking? The ones that stood out, of course, were because I think Jack did the live play-by-play, and Shannon was the color guy, right? He would provide the insight behind. And gosh, it's hard to differentiate between who they were, but back, baby, back, get out. It's a home run. I'm thinking about home runs from Mark McGwire, I guess, when he's like, get out of here. Home run number 72. If you remember that one, McGwire had struck so many long, towering home runs, but 72 was just barely over the fence and cleared the left field bench at Old Busch by like 2-3 feet. It's kind of a line drive. And there was a question whether or not it was going to get out of the park or not, because it wasn't one of these towering shots. But Mike's just like, get over it, baby. It's gone. And that's just kind of what you remember with Mike, just for always creating some excitement with his temperament and excitement and everything he brought to the game.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I actually I loved how much of a positive influence he was just on everybody that he was around. Not necessarily just like the city, but just putting a smile on people's faces. And even whenever he wasn't doing very well, you could just tell that he loved being in St. Louis. And I really think fans appreciated that he never kind of strayed away from us. So
yeah, I think you also appreciate he was just a straight shooter, right? He'd be like, well, if that guy would put a little more hustle on the ball out there, it could have made that play. But hey, it's a long day out in the sun here, folks. Maybe he needs an ice cold frosty one, But those are just the memories you have with Mike. And gosh, now you think about it, it's like so sad that he's gone, because he literally, I've got friends that are really close to him and his family, and they would give me updates and say, his health is gone. Not so good here. And they said it's really getting, and he wouldn't be in the booth. I think last year was his first year not in the booth in like 50 something years combined with his career or whatever. So it's just, wow, what a treasure. And, I do make the comment that somebody seen on my post. I got put a couple posts out there. I shared your guys' post, by the way, so don't let me forget that. But
Thank
I had
you.
people, and I had an inside source had texted me and said, did you know Mike Shannon passed away? And it was early on, the day that, the other day when he passed. And I said, okay, let me substantiate this. I want to validate this for some other source. And you were the other substantial source that I found that really had it before anyone else.
Thank you. Like that.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Well, I don't think you have any idea how much hearing that type of thing. And I talked to Justin Strebel on Twitter, and he had said something of the similar sort, that he trusts me enough with this, but it was just one of those things where you hope you're wrong. You know, it's like, if you're wrong, you wouldn't report it, but you hope you're wrong because it's just a heartbreaking piece to report on. And because, you know, he wasn't at opening day, so that gave people a lot of, you know, scares and of indicators and everything. But he was at the game. He was at a game a couple weeks ago, and people were like, okay, maybe things are on the up and up. And then you find out, and you get the validations and the confirmations, and it's just, I think it just.
I really wish that he could have been at opening day this year, just to have one more. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's like with Lou Brock and Bob Gibson, you know, when Lou, after his surgeries and everything, and Nick, like I said, things like this, it means the absolute world to me. That's what we here strive for, is not to be just, you know, is to not just be as best we can be, but as accurate as we can be, you know.
Well, that's what we're looking for. There were some people that questioned the post, and people said, well, I didn't hear it on KMOX, or I didn't hear it on Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 2. One guy said, I should be able to Google this, right? I'm like, Google's pretty quick, but I don't know that they index such things every minute, you know, to show up in a search result. But well, you had, by the time I saw that you had substantiated it and what I'd also heard, I was confident that it had happened. Now, after people started asking me a couple, I'm like, just because you haven't heard of those other places, I don't think we're wrong here. But I mean, if we are, maybe it was misreported. I doubt it. And then it all came pouring down. Everybody else heard about it within an hour or whatever. And I'm like, told you guys, these I-70 sports guys are on the ball, and did a great job. We appreciate you getting that out there so that we could all learn and be able to connect. And the post I put out there was a screenshot of your stuff and a link to your page.
Yeah,
thank you. For
Babs
that.
is actually the one.
I actually saw that.
My attention. Babs is the one who gets the credit for bringing your post to my attention.
Yeah.
And so I'm extremely grateful for both of you for that. And, you know, I think I listened to some of the, you know, I'm a sports card collector, so it's always nice having Mike Shannon cards from the 60s, you know, when he was actually a player. And, you know, but, and as good as he was as a player, it's sad how his career got cut short. It's what he did in the broadcast booth with one of the greatest in Jack Buck, and with so many others, you know, and as well as with John Rooney, you know, for the past 15 plus years, you know, and more than that even. And Nick who's tuning in, loyal followers, his best memory I got of Mike Shannon was he loved life, and we need to remember that. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. I have here actually a statement from Hollywood James Knox, and, you know, unfortunately he couldn't be on the show this evening with us, but we're always thinking of him. But he wanted to send out a statement with his memories, his favorite memories of Mike Shannon. So allow me, this is James Knox's statement on the death of Mike Shannon. Quote, I, like many, listened to the great Mike Shannon over the years, broadcasting Cardinals baseball, and his passing hit hard. Growing up, there were two voices that turned me on to the radio business, Jack Buck and Mike Shannon. I have worked for two Cardinal radio affiliates over the years, and when working for WYFX, was lucky enough to meet the Moon Man. He was great, a kind and funny soul. With his passing Sunday, my heart broke, but now, Mike Shannon, you finally get your nap. Rest in peace, big boy. And it is interesting because James pointed this out to me, but on MLB The Show 23, if you hit a home run with a Cardinals player, you actually get a graphic on the screen that says, "Get up, baby, get up, baby, get up. Oh yeah, home run."
That's the quote I was thinking of. Was that Mark McGuire's 72nd home run?
Yes.
Get up, baby. Yeah, because it was that's what I was saying. Just a shot over the wall. Wasn't a towering long one like most of his home runs, but that was get up, baby, get up, baby. And then 72. So
yep.
There was one of Albert Pujols. I believe it was whenever he hit the 3 homers in the same game. And Mike's like, he was like, oh, well, see, he didn't even have to glare at the pitcher. And then he was like, see, he's just going to trot around the bases, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, that is so awesome. And he was like, he doesn't need to glare at any pitcher. And
sure.
He was mad.
Guys like that, Albert has some class. Mike Shannon has some class, and that's just how baseball, St. Louis baseball in particular, we're known as baseball heaven, right? The premier place to play professional baseball on the face of the planet. I don't know where they play baseball other places in the universe, but on this little planet, this is everybody talks about it. The players talk about it. The visiting teams talk about it. I've got one of my good friends is a big New York fan, and he talks about you do not want to be an outfielder in New York, playing against the Yankees. They harass you. They call you names. They say all kinds of rude things to you in an effort to give their team an edge, to distract you. And there's never any of that you really see at Cardinals Busch Stadium. And I think that just shows to the class of fans that we have. And then it's a tribute that's kind of the way it's run with people like Jack Buck, Mike Shannon, our past managers and current crew we have in place. And, Cardinals are down a little bit by now, but they're not out, and it'll be something they bounce back from. I do have a little bit of stat. I pulled up that post that I shared. Over 10,000 people it reached. We had 1,182 people engaged, meaning they liked it, commented, or whatever. 335 reactions, and that was just one little post that I put out. And we average somewhere around that for our posts, and we do 10 or 12 posts every couple of days. And it was just cool to have somebody had such a cool graphic, and that's what I wanted to share because you had a great montage of historical pictures of Mike kind of from all eras. So that's why I chose that one. Besides the fact that you were the first one to report it. And I felt, obviously, I trusted you to say, I think they know what they're talking about. Because I had another. If you would have been the first one I heard it from, maybe I would have substantiated it with somebody else. But the other source I got was a personal friend who knows the family and texted me. And I said, probably true, but nobody's going to. But I guess you guys have some source like that too, and could prove it. And that's kind of
actually, I have to give credit to Tom Lang because he's the one that broke it first. And then I started questioning, and then the pieces just started to fall. So I wanted to give some credit to Tom Lang for the story also.
The Hat Man.
The Hat Man, yeah.
Right. Tom and
we got the Cowboy, but we got the Hat Man, and yes, the Hat Man, he was the one that first brought it to the attention. And, I spent that entire morning on nothing but focusing on the story, and trying to get every detail and everything. And at the same time, I was saying to myself, please God, don't be true. Cause I'm not trying, Mike Shannon, his voice, you hear that phrase, the voice of a generation. Well, Mike Shannon was the voice of multiple generations. And so, it harkens back to the week back in 2002, when you lose Jack Buck and Darryl Kyle all within 1 week, and losing Mike Shannon hurts, I was right on that because, I think it sums it up. Like I, said in the article, for over 70 years, the Cardinals and Mike Shannon and St. Louis, they were all joined at the hip, because he was more than just the Cardinals on the field. It was in the booth. It was at the restaurants. It was the charity events. He was so involved. It was the commercials. I mean, he was all over the place. And I remember how much everybody was rallying to support him after he was dealing with COVID, and so, just the passing of Mike Shannon just sent shockwaves through everybody. But 83 is one hell of a life to live. The way
I'm with you, and I agree. I guess it might have been from you that I got that 70 years. And I started adding up on it. That means he started some association with at least baseball in St. Louis, I guess, when he was 13 or 14, because I know he went to CBC High School and was a standout player there. And then obviously I understand he went to Mizzou on a full ride to play football, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
All that kind of information I think I got from you guys. And wow, just so that kind of impact for most of his life being tied into a team like he was, that's pretty amazing. And it's just neat to have. It's so sad. It just really makes me feel like, wow, what a legend, somebody who's actually impacted so much of our culture and community. And now we're going to, the last comment I made that I think was tied into this with regard to the impact he's had. And I put it on my post. It said, Mike, now you're up there. Please say hello to Gibby, Lou, Red, Stan, and we lost another one if I'm missing somebody. But then I also said, and my dad, because my dad like literally raised me. I was brought up on baseball, really. We're in the backyard taking fly balls. We're in the backyard taking ground balls. We're watching the Cardinals. You develop so many of what you learn about life from competing as a baseball player. And if it wasn't for people like Mike Shannon to be able to bring that to us, who would have done it? And how well would it have been understood? And it's just an incredible icon. So.
Absolutely. I want to thank you so much for being on. Before I let you go, we got former Cardinal Ray King backstage waiting for us. And before I let you go, just any final thoughts on just the memory and legacy of Mike Shannon and what he means to you, your family, and Cardinal Nation?
Yeah, I would say a community leader, somebody who really contributed, somebody who told it how it was, but it was always up front, didn't hold back, would share the inside details. I like Babs when she talked about the stories that he would talk about and the inside things. I mean, that's what you got. Baseball is kind of a slow sport. We joke that it's for smart people, right? You got to be smart to enjoy baseball because it's a complicated sport, and you need to have some insight as to what's going on in the players' minds, what's going on in the dugout, what's going on back in the clubhouse. And Mike would share a lot of that stuff, and you really got to understand and appreciate baseball as a whole, not just some game that we play or watch sometimes for entertainment.
Absolutely. Well, folks, if you go to Busch Stadium, I'm sure somewhere walking around, you'll find yourself the Cardinal Cowboy with an amazing hat and a replica World Series trophy. So be sure to slide on by, give him a good handshake, high five, selfie, whatever he's comfortable with. Let's put it that way. And
we take dozens of pictures every game, and I hope that it always brings more of the excitement to remember, little memories. I've got kids now that they were 6 and 7 years old. I've been doing this for so long. They're like, I'd meet them and I'm like, how old are you now? Like, I'm 32. But I remember getting a picture back with you when you were 6 years old. And I attribute my love for the game to people like Mike Shannon and Ozzie Smith and Whitey Herzog. And I just feel like there's so much the Cardinals contribute to, not just sports, but to our community and our culture. And Mike was a key part of that.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, the Cardinal Cowboy here on Roundabout Sports. Thank you so much.
Hi, Cowboy. Thank you for being on.
Thank you, guys. My friend. We'll see you soon.
Yep,
I'll talk to you again soon. Giddy up.
Yep. It's such a pleasure having him on. And I just love the community aspect that he brings up in regards to what Mike Shannon meant for the city, for just everything as far as St. Louis goes. Like I said, we always talk about Stan Musial and how he's connected with the city of St. Louis eternally, but there's something in a way almost overlooked with how close Mike Shannon and St. Louis are connected. And maybe it's because we didn't think that a time could come where he would pass until it finally happened. What I want to do now is bring on a good friend of mine. He's former Cardinal pitcher Ray King. Ray's been on the show before, and it's always a blessing to have him on. He is a very dedicated and charitable man himself off the field ever since his career has ended. And he also, believe it or not, has the longest known streak of its kind, going 328 games without issuing an intentional walk, which spans over 4 years. Folks, I want to bring on Ray King, ladies and gentlemen, here on Roundabout Sports.
How you guys doing?
We're all right, Ray. How are you?
I'm well. You caught me trying to cook and do the interview all at once.
Oh, my gosh.
If it doesn't turn out, I can blame you or my fiance, one of the two, right?
Exactly. You know what? It's worth just having you on, even if it was for a minute, is just totally worth it.
No, I appreciate it.
Never blame the fiance. It'll always be our fault. See, we're keeping you out of trouble too.
I'll take the fall. I'll take the fall for the sake of the relationship and the friendship here.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
So first thing, gotta ask, how you been lately?
I've been good. Can't complain. Just getting things wrapped up. I'm actually going coaching a MLB pre-draft this summer in Niles, Ohio, with Dimitri Young. So trying to get that going and looking forward to that. Spending the summer up there coaching some young kids, and hopefully in a few years we got some kids maybe in a Cardinal uniform.
That would be something we would really love looking at. We really love looking at you in a Cardinal uniform for arguably your 2 best years of your career, especially, in 2004, where you only had a 2.61 ERA, 5-2 record, and you were a workhorse that year too for the team that won the pennant, appearing in 86 games that season.
Yeah, I always said I come to ballpark expecting 2 pitch. So when you expect things, when it happen, you're ready to go. Kind of like old saying, he who fails a plan plans to fail. So that's why I looked at it to where, me and Kleiner gave Tony a 1-2 punch with lefties, and good thing it happened then, because today's game, I don't know how long that can last.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a little different nowadays with all the new rules. So before we get into, your special thoughts and tributes and everything for Mike Shannon, I do have to ask, I'm definitely inclined to ask this, what are your thoughts on the new pitching rules that are occurring in baseball, whether it be with the time clock, the 3-batter rule, things of that nature?
I like them all. I like the time clock. It speeds up the game. Don't get me wrong. I love baseball because it's a game that's been around for over 100-something years, and it's played to where there's a winner at the end. Yeah, some of the rules I don't like, but the speed clock with the pitcher and batters getting in the box, because sometimes as a pitcher you want to get in and get out, to where you don't want a guy to listen to his whole walk-up song the last 2 minutes, and then kind of like Nomar Garcia back in the day, flipping his batting glove 20 times, stepping out, stepping in, to where let's get the game on the road, just have fun and play the game the right way. Some of the things, the bigger bases, I don't care too much for, and then throwing over, because sometimes, a runner that's going to get a bigger lead, there's certain things he do, push his hat down, he's going to run, some things you pick up to where let that part play. But, the pitch clock I like.
So do you feel that with the pitch clock, do you think that, you're given about 15, 20 seconds to wind up for your next pitch? Do you feel that can throw off a pitcher's mentality when trying to deliver what he's got in store next for the batter?
I think it goes both ways. You look at Scherzer and some other guys, they will hold it to that last second and go to try to get a guy out. But you notice to where a lot of times when guys get 2 quick strikes, they use their timeout to make that adjustment, to where if they didn't use that timeout, then it speeds up everything. But I just think that, I work fast myself, so I love it to where, hey, let's get in, me and you, let's go. And, everybody get on the umpires and all that. But, umpires seeing over 200 to 300 pitches a night, he's going to miss some calls. So fans can relax on that one, because you get that call, you're happy. You don't get the call, you're upset. So, baseball is a game of instincts and reactions, to where from a player to an umpire to a coach, it's split second, you got to make a decision. And with the pitch clock, it speeds it up to where it takes the thought process out of some of the younger guys. You don't have time to think about it. You got to go.
Right. And, I look at, see, the thing with the umpire calls, look, I have my definite fair share of issues with umpires, although my contemporary, Hollywood James Knox, is an umpire, an NCAA affiliated umpire. So obviously I always watch what I say when I'm around him, for sure. But at the same time, they have just as much a hard job as any. And you brought it up, you got 200 pitches to see. A lot of them are judgment calls, but it's part of the game.
Yeah, that's what I say. Umpire got a tough job. And I tell anybody, even go volunteer at your local little league and umpire behind the plate. I seen a thing on Facebook the other day. I can't remember what city it was, but they were saying if the fans argue with the umpire, they have to go volunteer for.
It's in New Jersey. Yeah, New Jersey, they have to be umpires for 3 games.
To where you get back there, you see it to where everything is like bang, bang, especially on the pitches, especially now these kids like Jordan Hicks throwing 105 miles per hour. Then all of a sudden here comes a slaughter, to where now I'm looking on the level and I got to see if we're break over the plate, to where it's a tough job. But like I tell everybody, baseball is the best sport in the world, because you got a round bat with a round ball, you're trying to hit it, and there's 9 guys positioned, and 9 out of 10 that ball goes to one of them 9 guys. And it's fun. And then as a hitter, you get 3 hits out of 10, you go into Cooperstown. In business, you get 30%, you're out of business.
I do like that one. That's a good one. Babs, you have, I'm going to pass it over to you. I'm going to stay here. Don't worry. But you have an interesting story.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
I was going
to ask you, do you remember at winter warm-up, I think it was in either 17 or 18, when you actually tried to buy the boots off of my feet? Do you remember cold. Those?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
They may not fit, but I was trying. I'm an Arizona boy. It's hot here.
See? I still have them. I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if he remembers that.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. See, that's what I love about it.
Well, yeah, that's great. And I'm glad to see you again. And if you need those boots, just, holler and I'll send them to you.
I know. We did have a cool spring here. So maybe next year, if it's that cool, I have to hit you up and get them. I'll sport them around.
Yeah. My inbox is wide open. Oh
Ray,
my gosh! I can't believe you made me bring that up.
You didn't think I was not going to let you not bring that.
I know.
Up, okay, there's no way. So Ray, I have to say, so you have been a part of so many major league clubs in your career, so many organizations, and more importantly, so many communities. And what was it when you were in St. Louis? What was it like being a part of Cardinal Nation and part of that community?
Well, I'll tell everybody, I never forget in that December of 2003 when I got the phone call and said, you got traded to St. Louis from Atlanta. I grew up, right outside there in Tennessee where I grew up a Cardinal fan. I remember coming when I was 11, 12, 13 years old, 84, 85, 86. Cardinals sitting up in Big Mac land, seeing Ozzie Smith, Willie McGee, Vince Coleman, Tudor, Jack Clark, Tom Pagnozzi, all them guys, to where I sat there one day and said, man, I would love to be pitching at this place. And I got that call, and then I got to spring training, and I walk in the clubhouse, and, there's, Bob Gibson, Lou Brock, Red Shaney, Stan Musial, Willie McGee, all them guys that still came around in spring training, to where it was like a kid in a candy store, to where, at that point I already had, 3 or 4 years in major leagues. But I feel like when I got in St. Louis and got to Busch Stadium for that first game, and I walked out on the mound, and I looked up in Big Mac land, just like, man, 12 years old, I was sitting up there rooting for the Cardinals, and now I got the birds on my bat, on my chest, and now I'm part of it, to where I was a kid in a candy store, to where, once a Cardinal, always a Cardinal, from 04 to even I came back this past home opener, I was there, and then I went on a cruise this past January. So I'm still involved, and I love it where the Cardinals always keep you in loop. If you're the first guy or you're the 26th on a roster, to where they always keep you going. And then, the Cardinal community there, to where when I got back this past opening day, it was like I was just still playing. The fans are still unbelievable, 40, 45,000 every game. And just the history there, to where, we started out a little slow this year, but, like I tell the fans, you can't win every year. So got to take our lumps, but hopefully get back. But like I said, birds on the bat, on your chest, you can't beat it.
I wholeheartedly agree. And you had mentioned a lot of the names. I mean, Stan Musial, Lou Brock, Bob Gibson, Red Shaney, Willie McGee, all these guys that it's literally a Cardinal for life mentality, because, and our loyal follower, dear friend Nick, commenting about your legendary fastball there, Ray. I know that was one of your specialties during your playing days. And I believe you had a pretty strong slider as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, good old, two-seam fastball slider, to where, I was fortunate enough where, I had that year, seemed like no matter what I did, it turned into roses. So that was a great year in 04, to where I come in base load, nobody out, get out of it, or come in second, third, one out, get out of it, to where, we had a great team. Unfortunately, Boston was hot that year, but I'll take that team any day. 105 wins, to where, Larry Walker get traded over there, come in, base load and strikes out, get a standing ovation. So it just shows what type of fans they are. And as a player, when you get that push behind you, you can do not but have success. So I tell a lot of guys that's getting traded there, signed there, it's the best place you're going to play baseball.
You had mentioned earlier about, this was like a kid in the candy store for you because you grew up in Tennessee. So you were close. You were growing up a Cardinal fan. What was it like listening to the Cardinal games on KMOX? I know KMOX, it has such a strong signal. It reaches out, honestly, to the South. And so for you to be able to be a part of the organization you grew up listening to and watching, what was that like for you?
It was unbelievable. Go back to, Jack Buck, then going into Mike Shannon, to where it was just you sitting at home and you got the TV on, you got it turned down because I like the radio broadcast better. You got that in the background, and just the history and the knowledge of listening to the game, and the guys go down in the clubhouse before and post game, and some of the stories that Shannon and Buck would say, to where it just make you feel like you were right there with them. You're sitting in a clubhouse, or you're on the field with them. To where they told a story where an 8-year-old could get it, or a 98-year-old could get it, and just to listen to Cardinal baseball at that time, Whitey Herzog managing, and you just kind of see Vince or Willie on first. They're going to get still second, still third, and ground ball to second or short, infield back. You got to run, and they just told a story to where it was just Whitey ball, and then leaving there, going into La Russa area, to where you listen to it. Even when I play for other teams, I still tuned into the Cardinals because legendary broadcasters and legendary organization. You can't beat it.
Babs, I'm going to pass it over to you. It's wonderful. We talk about as fans how wonderful it is to listen to KMOX, and you listen to Jack or Mike or John, but to hear, those within that have been a part of the organization, that are part of the family, being able to hear for so long. And Babs, what's that mean to you? I know I'm going to give you the floor here.
Well, my only question that I have really for you is there any kind of a memory that you have of Mike calling or saying something about you that was funny on air, or that you remember of like just him being like maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? Supportive. Is there anything like that?
Well, even from Mike Shannon, I remember when I first got traded over, came into spring training, and then, after a couple of weeks of spring training for the game start, broadcasters would come down. And first time I saw Mike, and Mike looked at me, he's like, "Ha ha, big boy, we're gonna have a good season." And he just, that big voice, coming out of his voice, and just looking at him and knowing that, from a player to the 70s all the way up to 2004, been that part of the organization, and then getting into the season when everything started out, he would come over. He's like, "Hey, big boy, come on over to the restaurant Friday night. We're gonna do an interview. Have a drink and some good food." To where there's many times I'm like, I would love to come over. And then after games, just sitting here talking to him and just listen to him go back and forth about, their playing days to guys now, to where Mike was just an icon. Shannon's restaurant right across from the ballpark, to where, Friday nights you come in, there's still 40, 50 people from the game, just set the game for 2 or 3 hours, came over Friday night and listened to him live after the show. And then just having him around a clubhouse, to where his voice just carried, to where whenever you start talking, everybody's saying to stop and gravitate toward him and just listen to his stories, because some of the stories you can't tell on radio or TV, but as a player you really enjoyed it, to where he's the type of guy where he let you know how he feel, what he thought, what he was thinking. And then in the radio booth, you just sit there listening to him. A couple times in the clubhouse, we're in the clubhouse and listened to the first couple innings before I got to the bullpen. And Mike would just, "Hey, this is a great Friday night. Let's go, get up. There's things like that, to where you just hear it in his voice, to where when you ask that question, I can just hear it in my head, his voice, to where he's an icon. And, sad that we lost some great Cardinals, from, Bruce Hooter to, Mike now, and Red Cheney's, Lou Brock, all them guys, who are them are icons. And Mike fit right up there with them. And there's a Mount Rushmore in St. Louis, Mike will be up there with them.
Was there anything that he's ever said to you that stuck with you through the years that was pivotal to your playing career?
Well, Mike always came to me and he's like, "I like your approach. You warm up in the bullpen 2 or 3 pitches, you come on mound 2 or 3 pitches, and you got that look, to where if you're Barry Bonds or a guy just came from AAA, this is my mound, this is my situation, and you challenge them. And we hear that from a guy at X stature to where he appreciates your work, it just makes you want to get that much hungrier each time you come in. You're thinking, okay, I set that persona and other people see it, and then how Mike Shannon see it and say it to me, that was just another push in the back to where, hey, let's go downhill, big boy.
That's so awesome.
I really love, how welcoming he always was to everybody, whether it be, from within the organization or just within the community. It's funny to me because as exciting as, even as the years went on and, his health started to decline, it was like listening to Mike and then John on KMOX was must listen to radio regardless. You could tell he was starting to slow down, and then he reduced his schedule to where he would only call home games. But at the same time, it was still must listen to. And I think, a big part of it was because he brought you that emotion and that storytelling aspect that you don't get as much of these days. And of course, because everything's becoming so modernized, and Mike Shannon was sadly one of the last of the old school style broadcasters. Bob Euchre's one of the last living ones. Dennis Matthews with the Kansas City Royals. So it was wonderful always getting a chance to tune into a Cardinal game on the radio, whether if you're in a bullpen or you're out on the road or something, or just not able to be in. I think the perfect thing, Ray, and I'm sure, for a guy that spent so much time at Busch Stadium, you walk around the ballpark and what is it? They may have the TV on, but they have the radio broadcast playing throughout the sound system.
Yeah, like I said, you go back to, the Hallis Callis in Philadelphia, Ben Scully in Dodger Stadium, Euchre in Milwaukee, then Mike Shannon in St. Louis, to where, like you said, them are the last, quote unquote, in a good term, the dinosaurs of radio, to where, they told a story and they had you in tune to that story, to where he can be talking about, Jeremy out fishing and caught a big old catfish. Oh, there's a swing. It's a deep drive. Get up, it's going. And go right back to the story about you fishing, to where he kept you in tune of the game, but telling you a story to where it's just like, I just got a life lesson while listening to a baseball game, to where he just kept you in tune and kept you on your toes. And, it was kind of like, like telling a story and then broadcasting the game and telling you what's going on in the game, first and second, nobody out. Here's a pitch, it's a swing, fly ball to right, and then go right back into a story, into the commercial break, and come right back to it. To where he was just, he was an art at it. And for him going from playing into broadcasting, you would think he grew up wanting to be a broadcaster, not a baseball player, but he became a great broadcaster after baseball playing. And then to do it back in your hometown where you played for so long. And if don't get me wrong, from the 70s all up until, recent, to where that's a long time, longevity. And evidently they loved him because he stuck around that long.
I think one of my favorite quotes of his, and it's also, like you said, the term, it's a term of endearment in this regard when you're talking about the old dinosaurs, if you will, of broadcasting. But he always had his terms of endearment. And I think one of them for me was whenever there was a special holiday. So Mother's Day comes to mind. And he always would start it off by saying, it's Mother's Day. So a big happy birthday to all you mothers out there.
Yeah, Mike had a way for words. And I always joke with him because I say either that's their favorite black jacket or you got 300 black jackets. No matter when you see them, like that jacket on, to where you either got one that you love or you got 300 in your closet, you just rotating them out. But, like you said earlier, Mike is a guy that he never met a stranger, to where if a guy just got off work or, billionaire walk in the room, Mike didn't care because he was, he was a light in that room. And like I said, he never met a stranger.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you this, and this is something that's actually, unfortunately, it's all come at a bad time. So with MLB and the MLBPA, with the new collective bargaining agreement, they came to talking in regards to corporate sponsorships and advertising. And the Cardinals already had a patch on their jersey as a tribute to Bruce Sutter, the Hall of Famer. He had passed away. Well, now, unfortunately, we had thought they were going to announce a patch or something commemorating Mike Shannon. Turns out it was a corporate sponsor patch on the jersey, and a lot of people are giving a lot of flack on the organization or just the MLB in general because of this. Because it's actually, if anything, more of an MLB move. I wanted to get your kind of thoughts on that, especially since it's not just that they're putting it over, choosing to put a corporate sponsorship over a deceased legend, but also cutting short a tribute to a Hall of Famer in order to do this.
It's just, unfortunately, in the world of sports now, it's all about making another dollar. You look at some organizations that, I paid $200 million for this organization. That's worth $6.6 billion, to where, I think there's enough TV, radio, print revenue coming in to where don't, quote unquote, muck up the uniform with advertising. I was watching basketball one night. I think somebody had a crypto on their jersey to where if I'm a fan, I'm not looking for the advertising. I'm looking for the player and what they're doing. But, it's tough because ownership is, where can I get another dollar of revenue? If you hadn't seen, like out here, we got a new owner with the Phoenix Suns, and he was saying he's going to find a way to take the Suns game off of cable and put on regular TV because you want the regular fan that can't afford that $100, $200 ticket, but still can sit at home on local news, can watch it. And I applaud him for doing that, to where sometimes I think owners get so caught up in the corporate world they forget about little Johnny and Jack and Jill sitting in the stadium that paid, 10 years ago was $8 for that ball. Now it's $15 for that ball. To where I just think from the corporate side, I think there's enough revenue coming in from, TV, radio, and everything else to where don't muck up a nice, beautiful Cardinal uniform with patches all over it. I remember going down to Mexico playing in the Winter League and, had patches on pants, shirt, to where if you wear extra large, you had to get a 2X because you got so many advertisements on it.
Oh, God. So you're basically a walking billboard at that point.
Right. So
yeah.
If they do it, they keep it small, but like I said, that nice, cream or that blue uniform on Saturdays and Sundays look great without, 18 logos on it for advertisement. To me, that just takes away from the uniform.
They kind of remind me of a NASCAR car a little,
right,
with all their, corporate sponsors and everything. You don't know what their actual sponsor is, so it's really confusing.
The baseball revenue has went up every year. You got teams like, Cardinals, Dodgers putting 40,000-50,000 in the stadium, and then you got Oakland, which is a quote unquote mess out there. So hopefully they get to Vegas and get some revenue, get some people back in the stands at a new stadium out there. But overall, baseball's in a good state, I think. And then with the bargaining agreement, I think too many young players don't invest in the future. To where when I was playing, I was an executive rep, I was a player rep, to where I'm getting involved in everything, to where someone asked me a question, I had to answer, to where I think it's now at the point where some of these kids don't even know who Kurt Flood is. And that's a shame, to where, league minimum is what, 720, 730 right now. And
yeah, it's about,
I don't understand why they got it so good, to where I think they go back and, when I was younger coming up, my first team was with the Cubs. I couldn't leave the clubhouse until, Gracie, Morandini, and Guy left the clubhouse, to where you were a sponge. You sat and listened to the stories, having a cold one after the game, to where, you're learning the game. Now these kids trying to get out of the locker room, the game over at 9:30, 9:45, they're walking out of the clubhouse trying to get back to the hotel and play Fortnite.
Yeah, no kidding there. We got a special.
I feel you. I'm sorry.
We got a special thing. So Hollywood James Knox, our dear co, I guess he had heard me talk about umpires earlier in the in the interview, and so he had to jump in. But
There's a
story that he wants me to ask you about. He says, ask Ray King to tell the Brad Thompson suit story. I have heard it from Brad.
I don't recall that one. That one's drawing a blank on me. You have to refresh me on it.
I'm going to have, if I hear it from James soon, I'm going to definitely reach out to you and let you know about that. That one
definitely.
That one catches my curiosity. And you got
mine too.
Mine too. I can't remember it.
You know, then of course Eddie tuning in as always. Really big fan having you on. And so we got a question here from Nick, and I know you have had hundreds of teammates over the course of your career. What is just one of the kindest, best ones that came to mind that you had the pleasure of playing alongside?
Well, first off, Kleiner, Steve Klein. You know, everybody know Kleiner. We call him Dirty Kleiner. That hat was a mess, but he's probably the guy that would give you a shirt off his back. And he was a competitor. So when I got there in 2004, you know, usually when a new guy come in, especially another lefty, you're going to have a little friction. But we hit it off in the first day of spring training to where, you know, no matter if I'm pitching a 6, you pitch a 6. We got another one 7th, 8th inning to where we had a double head monster that year, and it worked out. But, you know, Kleiner was a guy where he kept everybody loose in the clubhouse. And there's some times where, you know, Kleiner kind of put up one finger one time to LaRussa, and they got caught on camera, and little fun in the locker room with them too. But Kleiner was always a guy to where he was straightforward, honest, great person, and, you know, didn't have a filter. So he was one of my great players. And then other ones probably when I was in Atlanta with Russ Ortiz and Marcus Giles. You know, when I came over to Atlanta, them two guys were just, you know, stand-up guys, giving you, you know, the way around town, what to expect, and how to, you know, play the game as an Atlanta Brave. And so with them two there, but I think Kleiner was probably my top teammate.
And Nick definitely brings up, and Steve Klein actually had himself a great reputation here in St. Louis. The Cardinals even once in 2002 had a promotion called Steve Klein Hat Day.
Yeah, dirty hat
because
day.
Of just because he had a dirty hat he always wore. Now here's the story. So James is commenting. And first off, I will say, yes, you be nice to umpires. So we'll debate about that later, James. But anyway, so Brad Thompson says that you gave him his first suit when he got to the major leagues.
Oh yeah, so that was in end of spring training. So we have a company called LAV out of LA, free advertising for you guys. Send me a new suit since the old guy. But I always tuck, you know, rookie, no matter what team I was on, and, you know, got him that first suit to where just let them know to where evidently you did something right in spring training, the beginning of the season, you carry yourself well or respectful, because a lot of guys come up and, you know, they think they made it, but they only have one day in the big leagues. They, you know, I get to the clubhouse at 3:30 or, you know, whatever, and they're coming in behind a veteran to where, you know, Brad was always a guy there. He was there early, stayed late. And so you saw that. So you kind of want to reward them guys instead of, you know, you pick on them, but also you want to reward them for learning how to be a professional. Just like my first year, Mark Grease had me in Pittsburgh at 2:00 in the morning trying to find a pack of cigarettes at 2:00 in the morning in Pittsburgh. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? Next day, I got to go get something else. And then finally I got smart enough. I just bought 2 cartons and kept in my room. When he called me, I waited 30 minutes before I knocked on his door and gave it to him. And then we got to New York. He bought me a couple suits there. So it just goes to show you put in your dues, and it's not really hazing. It's just, you know, you're earning your keep. To where some of these guys now, you can't even talk to them, to where they're looking at you like, I'm the same status as you. Like, yeah, we're in the same locker room, but I earn my stripes, so you need to earn yours.
Yeah, I do like that's a good story, most definitely.
That's really awesome.
So Jessica has a question, and Jessica, thank you so much for tuning in. Weird question. What was your motivation for playing baseball? What got you into wanting to play baseball?
Well, I played every sport, but I remember when I was like 9, 10 years old, all my cousins in Tennessee were, you know, 13, 14, 15, 16, and they didn't take it easy on me, to where that's where I learned, you know, the toughness, to where you get knocked down, you get back up. But baseball was a sport that, being a lefty, and I started pitching right away, to where it came natural. With a little work, I got better and better. Then my junior year in high school, I'll never forget, we went 27-5 and we lost 5 games to the same team, Montfort. And then that next year, my senior year, the guy at Montfort got the coaching job at Lambeth. And I remember him coming recruiting me. He's like, you got this stuff where you can pitch in the major leagues for a long time. And that kind of really lit the fire even more to where when I got to college and I started looking at, okay, what do I need to do to get to the next level? And 3 years later, I got drafted. And after that, and then 3 years in the minors, I made it to the big leagues to where baseball was always that sport to where it humbles you. And I loved it. And a competitor to where no matter who you were, if you just got to the big leagues or guy just coming out of high school, I thought I was better than you. And I always went out and tried to prove that I'm better than you. But you off the field, we're the same. But when it's time for me to come in, you try and take food off my plate, and that's not going to happen.
Absolutely. Parker, or Ray, I know you. I'm sure your fiance is ready for you to have some dinner.
She ate without me. How bad is that, Babs?
Do what now? What'd you say?
She ate without me.
She ate without you. Oh my gosh! And I tried to be nice to her. Never again.
Oh man,
she's cut off. No, this is great. Anytime I can come on and talk about the great game of baseball, especially St. Louis, and it's such a bad time in losing Mike Shannon. Anything I can do to help you guys anytime, I'm more than welcome. And spread the the great news about Mike to where let's not be sad about it. He's going to a better place than what we're going through down on this earth to where he's probably up there telling the story right now to all the former great Cardinals right now, smiling down, looking at the Redbirds and saying, let's play 2.
Absolutely.
He gets to tell Stan that Albert played for the Cardinals again.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah, look at this. So you went to high school in Ripley, Tennessee, and James was actually born in Union City, Tennessee. How about
Union City Tornadoes? They had a guy, pretty good basketball and baseball player there called Rodney Barnes. He was a pretty good player there, but yeah, Union City, Ripley, O'Brien, Brownsville was where in basketball where Tony Delk went, and Steve Worley, a couple of guys made it to the big league. So that little small area there, we got a lot of guys in professional sports. Al Wilson in football with the Broncos. Was in
Al Wilson, okay.
Yeah, I was in Milan, Tennessee, and then Tony Delk in basketball was from Brownsville, and then I was from Ripley, and then we had some another guy from Covington. So then Memphis, we had Anthony Hardaway and all them guys. So we had a lot of talent in a little small pocket of West Tennessee.
How about that? Yep, and it's great having James on to at least showcase his
the tornadoes
and rep his tornadoes. Although. So I want to go. I do have. Oh, here we go. James says he's faced Derek Turnbow in Little League, actually.
Well, see, James, like that one guy you had at bar is always Little Leagues, not college or minor leagues. It's like I faced him in Little League. Did you get a hit, James? That's the question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, James, that's the question. We're gonna wait and see if he got a hit. And see. I definitely can't wait to see this answer. While we wait for that, I know I had Parker backstage. He has a question. He wants to ask you. He's been very eager to meet you. So I'm bringing Parker back on, Ray.
Okay.
If it's no trouble for you. So
no
Parker,
problem.
welcome back on, my friend.
Well, thank you,
Parker. This is Ray.
Ray, I just I know in what was it 2004 you had 86 appearances. That's quite the load.
Yeah, 4 more than half.
You you came within 3 of Kleiner.
Right.
Kleiner has the record for the team, and a reliever from the Los Angeles Dodgers, Montreal Expos, Minnesota Twins, etc. Mike Marshall actually has the major league record with 106 appearances.
So and honestly, you weren't too far off from that either.
Yeah,
no. Oddly enough,
close to 100 when you count the playoffs that year.
Oddly enough, Mike Marshall holds the record for appearances in both leagues.
Wow, that is crazy.
Because he pitched in 92 games for the Twins a few years after the 106.
Right.
Well, we have our answer, Ray. He was wild then and still was in MLB. See, it looks like
he got hit.
So you got to swing and bunt?
I think he got hit.
I think he got clunked.
Yeah, we'll call that a swing
And
bud,
I'm
have
out.
a drink. Yeah, we'll
Have
have
a
a
good
swing
night,
and
guys.
bud call today. Oh,
Well, you guys,
man.
I'll see you later.
No, exactly. There's gonna be hell to pay when James comes back and talks to me about me
Oh
getting
my
hit when
gosh.
Derek Turnbow
James
in
who?
Little League. You know, on the bright side, at least it didn't happen to MB. It would have been a lot more painful.
Right.
On a lot more bigger stage,
I
too.
wonder how fast those little league kids can actually throw.
Right. Folks, welcome. For those that are just tuning in, welcome to Roundabout Sports. I'm the maestro, Jeremy Karp, alongside Babs, Parker Benia, and, of course, former Cardinal pitcher and longtime baseball reliever and just charitable activist himself, Mr. Ray King. Ray, you've shared so many amazing thoughts on the passing of the late, great Mike Shannon, shared so many introspectives about your career, and things that have gone on in current state of Major League Baseball as compared to what it was, honestly, just a decade and a half ago, when you and Steve Klein and Tavares were playing. This is an interesting question I got sent in. I didn't know whether to share it because it's here somewhere. Oh, well, I saw it somewhere. I thought it was, you know what? It might have been the teammate one because at first I thought it was team. At first I thought Nick was asking, what's your favorite team to play with? I'm like, oh gosh, I can't imagine putting him on the spot for that. But I'll ask you this question. What did it mean to you to have in a career, in any sport, the tomorrow is never given to be able to play at the top level? And for you, you did it for a decade. How does that mean to you, not just from a physicality standpoint, just from a mental standpoint, to say, hey, I went out there and for 10 years I did this and I did it well?
Well, I tell everybody, that first day, I remember, and when I got the call, I was in AAA Oklahoma City, and I was with the Cubs at the time, and I got back to the hotel, and now I'm going to age myself, but the phones with the little orange light flashing in your room. So we had played a game, and a couple of guys went out. We had a couple of drinks afterwards. I get back about 3:30 in the morning, and my lights flash, and I check the message, and Bob Grimes, our trainer, is like, "You going to the big leagues?" And I'm like, "You kidding me, right? Quit joking, quit playing, because And he's like, "No, you're playing. You got a 7:30 flight tomorrow morning. You're going into Atlanta, and so I get my bags packed, and the team is going back to Iowa. I'm going to Atlanta, and I get to Atlanta, and I got no bags because they put my baseball bag with the AAA team. So I'm like waiting, no bag, and then I get to the stadium, and I get glove from Felix Heredia and some shoes. Called my agent, and he had some guy from like a sporting goods store brought over a pair of cleats, and so I'm like, okay, get my uniform, and I'm just holding up number 56 with the Cubs, and I'm just like, wow, I called my family and everybody, and my high school coach, Coach Mathis, which I still talk to probably once a week now. It came down the next day, but that night when the phone rung and it's like, Kinger, get up. And I remember jogging into that game, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm in Atlanta. I made it to the big leagues. I'm warming up. I got Benito Santiago, my catcher, Mark Grace at first, Blouse and Morandini, Gary Gaddy, and I'm just like, all right. And Benito was like, all right, kid, just throw it. I'm like, well, one fastball, two sliders. He's like, just throw it. I'll catch it. So I warm up, and then, now, announcer comes on, now batting number 10, Chipper Jones. So the first hitter I faced in the big leagues was Chipper Jones.
Look where he is now.
I get on the mound, and I'm waiting for a sign, and Benito's just like, throw it. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. My heart is pounding. I look over at Gracie, and Gracie's going like this, slider. Throw him a slider, ground ball, get a ground ball, get out of the inning. And I'm just like, it seemed like it took me 20 minutes to walk from the mound to the dugout because I was on cloud 9. And then, fast forward, finish there, then go to Milwaukee for a few years, go to Atlanta, come to St. Louis, Colorado, Washington. And then, like you say, you look back to where one day in the big leagues was amazing. 10 years was a blessing from God to give me the ability to play the game and go out and play it at a level to where I had longevity. And that's the biggest thing in this game, to where I watch some of the young kids now, when they come up, they trying to throw a ball 10,000 miles per hour, and they last 2 or 3 months and they're Tommy John or out of the game, to where, I was taught a long time ago, you're not going to run through a wall. You may walk to that wall and see if you can find a door to go through it. And that's kind of like the baseball is, more is less, less is more. And that's why I always had the mentality, to where when I came in to pitch, I tried to limit everything, number of pitches, because you only got so many bullets and you're going to run out. So for me to minimize it to where I want to get in, get a hitter, I went all about the strikeouts. If I can get a ground ball double play, I can pitch tomorrow. Now, if I go out though, like some of these kids now, I think I was watching the night, reliever at the Cardinals do like 36 pitches in the inning. I'm like, that's like 4 days of work for me.
Wow. So I do want to say, and like I said, I'm just so grateful to have watched you pitch during your time in St. Louis and followed your career afterwards. And yes, we do have the question I thought was there that I thought wasn't is actually there. So first off, Justin Henry tuning in. Thank you so much, Justin. Yes, we have the amazing Ray King on. And yes, Eddie was the one who asked, you pitch for a lot of teams. You start out with the Cubs, you pitched with the Cardinals, the Rockies, and you went to Atlanta. You've had yourself the Brewers even for a season, Nationals. So let's put it this way. We love you no matter what you say, but I guess here's the question.
Oh, you're putting them on the spot.
What was your favorite? But
we're watching you.
But we're watching. We're watching, but we love you. What was your favorite team to pitch for?
Well, of course, St. Louis, because I grew up a Cardinal fan, and then able to come back and pitch there for them years is unbelievable. But the Cubs are always going to be dear in my heart, because that's the team that gave me my first opportunity to get to the big leagues. But pitching for the Cardinals, like I said, once you put that jersey on, you always a Cardinal. And like I said, even leaving there in 05, coming in 06 with the Rockies, I remember my first game there. I come in to pitch and get a standing ovation for opposing team. And then even there.
Cardinal fans have always been very kind to players that have come back with other teams.
Yeah, if you show gratitude and you go out and perform, and you take responsibility. And I think that's the biggest thing about the Cardinal fan is, if you take responsibility and go out and give it your all, they're always going to support you, to where I can't remember any time where a player just had a rough time in St. Louis, because the fan's always going to support you, because, there's a game tomorrow. Until you take that uniform off, you can get better. But if you be, grumpy and complain and, get down on the fans or question them, like some other teams I played on where players are going at it with fans, I'm like, you never see that in St. Louis, where opposing team make a great play and they get a standing ovation. So that's what made St. Louis such a great city to play for. And I think Cardinals have done a great job over the years of getting guys coming in with character.
I love to hear it. Parker, I'm going to give you the floor for a final question. And then
Ray, I was going to say that I went to a game against Arizona in 08. And it was the first time Eckstein had come back. David Eckstein was back, and he got a standing ovation from the fans. But I want to ask you, Ray, what is your take? And please be honest with us. What is your take on what's going on right now with the Cards?
Well, I think they got off to such a rough start, to where the pitchers are pressing. And then as a hitter, I know it's frustrating for a hitter when you go out and score 6-7 runs and you lose that game. Because I remember being there. If we scored 4 runs, there's a 98% chance we was going to win that game. To where I think pitchers now, just like the other night, I was watching the Angels game where, gave up 4 in the first, to where we give up them runs like that in the first, knowing you're lacking effectiveness coming out of the bullpen. So you just see it. They were flat. We're down by 4 runs. We're not going to come back. And I think the guys need a little, not pep talk, because you're at the highest level. Pep talk not going to get you going. But I think they need somebody, a voice in that clubhouse to hey, get your head out your rear and let's go. To where, like even tonight, they jumped out 1-0 and then gave it back up in the, I think, second inning. I don't know what the score is now, but
it's 4-3 us right now.
Yeah. So now guys are starting to look at the scoreboard. Okay, we're up 4-3. Who's warming up in the bullpen?
Mm-hmm.
Where
now is this
out?
team a 90 to 100 game loser?
I don't think they are, but I think I'm hoping Wainwright's not going to come back and be the guy to go 16-1 for the rest of the season. But I think he's going to be a voice in that dugout or in that rotation with them guys to where it can kind of teach them different, I guess, approaches. Because you look at some of these starters to where sometimes they almost look like a deer in the headlights to where I can't make a mistake instead of being aggressive. You got to be aggressive. And I look at some of these starters and some of the bullpen guys, and I'm not going to pick on the manager, but some of the decisions could have been a little different using guys in different situations to where with Jordan Hicks, he was struggling. You should have took him out of a stressful role and let him work himself back in, not throw him back into that 2-1 ball game to where now he's going to throw 40, 50 pitches and give up 2 or 3 runs to where you set him back 3 weeks instead of, okay, we're going to go to another game. We're going to, work on something because it's, you're throwing 105 miles per hour. There's no way you should be hitting like you get, getting hit. And then I read an article.
You wouldn't be hitting your own catcher either.
Right. And then I saw a thing with Contreras. I loved what he said is we're not pitching with that bulldog mentality. We're like, oh, here it is. Oh, hope he don't hit it.
You guys in 04, you had that bulldog mentality. You had 5 guys. Your whole rotation went 200 plus innings pitched.
Yeah, because we look at that. It started with Carpenter, Woody Williams, Suppan, Jason Marquis,
Matt Morris
came over. And then you look at the bullpen to where we looked at our bullpen with, myself, Kleiner, Mike Lincoln, Julian Tavares, Al Reyes, and then Iserhausen to where we looked at it. If our starters can get us to the 6th inning, we got a great chance of winning that game. And we did. We won 105 games that year. Exactly. But we had pitchers that, had that bulldog mentality to where it's all about closeout. Like the same thing. You score 1 run as a pitcher, you got to go out and throw a 0 to keep the momentum going. You can't. We score 1 to go out and give up 3, and there was very few times that happened with us, to where we just had that mentality to where we're going to put our foot down and we're just going downhill. We're not going to look back to where we're just going forward to. I think some of these guys now are looking back, and they got so many young pitchers to where they're looking like, oh, I can't have another bad outing. I'm gonna get sent back to AAA. And I think these guys are pitching scared than aggressive.
Absolutely. Parker, we're going to have you back on in just a little bit. Okay, my friend? Thank you so much for joining us.
Have a good one.
Nice to meet you, Ray.
You too.
All right. So I got, before we go to you, we got one more question I got from Nick. What are your thoughts on your old teammate, Scott Rowland, going into the Baseball Hall of Fame?
I love every bit of it. I remember a couple years ago, a lot of people saying they don't know, he's on the fence, he's not a Hall of Famer. But, Scott playing third base to where he was like a vacuum cleaner over there. Anything come close, he made the plays. And he's a big boy. A lot of people don't realize how big he is if he's playing third base, being that agile and flexible and just a great all-around great guy. He was a guy that when he shook your hand, he was a firm handshake and made eye contact. And he's just one of them good old country boys that played the game the right way. And, from Philadelphia coming into St. Louis to where, he's a Gold Glover, Hall of Famer, one of the best guys, I ever met. I put him up there with Jim Thome, just some nice guys in baseball that, played the game the right way and the numbers were there. And I'm glad he's going in the Hall of Fame. And like I said, I just hats off to him and congratulations to him.
Babs, you got any final amazing thoughts? And as you're looking up the shipping address for those winter boots, no.
I know. I seen the are on the wall. Where's the Ray King picture at?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you here, we'll do this. I'll send you the boots. You send me a picture. Yeah. Yeah. So that'll work.
You know what though? I will say this, Ray. She did such an amazing job with the graphic for tonight. She does with all of our graphics. She did just an amazing job promoting and having you on. So, I guess that can make up for the lack of one behind her. We'll let that one.
Let that one slide.
Let that one slide.
Well, if it makes you feel better, it's only one person on the wall. So I mean, if that helps, it really is. It's only one person.
It's just a shrine of Izzy.
Yeah.
No, it's not Izzy. It might be Carlos Martinez.
Ooh.
I love Carlos.
But,
He had the worst hair in baseball.
Oh,
yes.
Definitely. I mean, he ain't wrong.
Sometimes, yes.
Him and that kid with the D-backs now, Grundle, with the purple hair. Have you seen that
Yes.
one?
I've seen Grundle.
Yeah. Yes. I think the best thing was blonde Yachty. That was something to see.
God.
I've never seen.
Just
It was like he was pure white from head all the way to toe.
Yeah. Don't do it again. Don't do it again.
Yeah.
Don't do it again.
No,
It was a great one-off appearance. And by great, I mean it was bad. Never again.
Yes.
Ray.
Oh my gosh.
I can't tell you how great it's been having you on, man. Like really. You mean a lot to me, to us, to so many people. So, you know, I know your fiance already ate dinner, and I'm sure yours is already.
I know.
Getting cold, man.
That's a blast. I enjoyed it, and like I say, anytime I can come on and talk to him of baseball, that's what I love to do. And anytime, let me know.
I will.
I'll be in your inbox for that picture.
Okay. All right, you guys have a good one. Thank you.
You too. Ray King,
Bye.
ladies and gentlemen, on Roundabout Sports. Take care, my friend. It's just amazing to have him on. What an absolute blessing. Parker, we're gonna bring you back on we reached the hour and a half mark here on the show. It was just so great having Ray on. It was great having the Cardinal Cowboy on earlier.
That was something special.
I think back of you always have those moments in time where where in your life you say, where were you when such and such happened? Whether it was a great moment or a tragedy or just something, you always say to yourself, where were you?
All right. Where was I when Desert Storm went down?
Yeah, Desert Storm.
There. I was there.
Yeah, I was going to say, Parker was in Desert Storm when it went down. So,
Thank you for your
me,
service.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For me, the one of the interesting Mike Shannon moments was where I was when the Cardinals won the 2013 NL pennant. So I was in one of my parents' cars. I was dropping. I had just gotten done. I had to pick up a car for my parents or something. I was in one of the cars driving, and I was listening to KMOX on the radio. And I pulled over into the parking lot just so I could listen to the rest of the game on the radio. And listening to John and Mike was the one calling the ninth inning, and it was so exciting to hear him and say how the Cardinals were going back to the World Series, And once again, it's unfortunate they didn't make the World Series, but Parker, give me your thoughts. We might actually have one more guest on the show this evening. So, Parker, give me your thoughts on like one of those where were you moments with the great Mike Shannon call.
Sure. This was the final day of the 2011 regular season. I had the TV on, the picture, had the TV picture on, but I muted the sound and wanted to play the radio. So when I was there, when Mike Shannon said we had made the playoffs, I was there with my older son. That was one of the things I remember being special about that year in 2011, that my older son and I bonded over that pennant race. But the final 3 outs of that game, we got to listen to the great Mike Shannon.
Absolutely. And Nick says, stay blessed. Nick, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for all the love and support you guys give us. It means so much. And so, Babs.
Eddie Jameson says I'm a legend.
Yeah, Eddie does say you're a legend. We'll discuss what's going on with Eddie, if that's what. No, I'm kidding. No, we love Eddie, Nick, everybody. So I want to bring on our next guest. Is our final special guest for this evening. He is a radio DJ at USMI out of Litchfield, Illinois. And for those that don't know, that's a classic country station. And he's also been a former guest on the show. And dear longtime Cardinal fan, dear friend, Sean Valiant, everybody. Thank you, Sean, for joining us this evening.
Hi, Sean.
I like that.
Hey, what's going on? It is. It's the genuine article.
That is the
Not
St.
that I
Louis
look
Browns.
Yeah, not that I look anything like Eddie Goodell, but hey.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at my height, even I'm not. I'm 5'5", and I'm still a couple feet away from him. So
I'll tell you, and I can bring it up in a moment.
Oh gosh, Sean. So I have to ask, longtime, Cardinal fan, longtime KMOX listener, first reaction to the passing of Mike Shannon.
I think like a lot of folks, I heard that it had been a battle. He had the long COVID, from what I understand. It hurt his final season. I mean, you could tell he was in a real tug of war with his health. And I think he was at the park for the first time in a while, and I think people also knew he was having a hard time. So it's sad, but it's almost like Bryant right away when he stopped coaching football, and a short time after that, you just not trying not to sound like I'm speculating or saying anything about what happened. It's almost like a big part of them has passed on when they leave, when you become so a part of a program for so long, and you remember that emotion he had at the ceremony. I think we were kind of all surprised at big alpha male Mike Shannon when he just completely broke down, and it was tough. And I'm sure I think he probably enjoyed the peace and quiet of Marine, Illinois, but by the same token, it's tough to leave that office. It's so much more than a job.
For you've listened to KMOX with millions of other fans for decades, and you saw the partnership that he had, the chemistry with Jack Buck, and how it evolved with the one with John Rooney. What's it like just knowing that you got to be a part of something that spanned not just one generation, but multiple generations? Because Mike Shannon transcended more than just one set of Cardinal fans.
Boy, no doubt about it. And it's interesting, of course, the younger the reporter doing a piece, the less they know of Mike Shannon, the player. I mean, when he talks about those 60s pictures, or when he talked about it, I'm sure you guys are the same thing. The chills. I mean, that was just a special era. I almost call it like the biblical era of pitching, with all the legends that went through the 60s. So when you're hitting home runs in a World Series as a young man off Whitey Ford, that's first home run in Canada, I believe, and first home run at Busch Stadium. They'll call it Busch Stadium too. To me, Sportsman's Park is Sportsman's Park, and there have only been two Busch Stadiums. I don't care what it was called after the brewery bought the team. Yeah, it'll always be Park to me. But anyway, not that I got to see it, but yeah, it's and and I think all three of you know that scene's changed a lot, and I don't know about your preference, but I get a little tired of whip, WAR, and OPS. I mean, there's a place for it. Exit velocity, I think it meshes well on television where you can put it on the screen, but gosh, I storytelling, and hearing him talk to the 60s and when players didn't have all the creature comfort and dealing with segregation, it was almost as valuable as the movie The Green, because he told you what they went through and how people kind of stuck their necks out. Stan Musial was ahead of his time in that regard. Kind of set the standard. Probably had an impact on Mike because, Mike certainly was passionate about what the players emerging from the end of the Negro Leagues and desegregated. Those incredible. Is there anything live show at Shannon's?
Yeah, I know a few people that went to one of the live shows he would have at Shannon's, and it was always a hot spot to be, because that's the thing. Mike Shannon transcended beyond the Cardinals. Nick had commented earlier in the show, with his involvement with Fast Eddie's. How many times do you hear on the radio, if you're 21 and in the mood, come on down to Fast Eddie's Bon Air in Alton, Illinois. And
Get a big Elwood, big boy.
I think that's perfect.
It sounds just like that too.
Oh
sounds
my gosh,
just like
yes.
that too.
That
Seriously.
was a perfect delivery. I love that.
Fast Bon Air. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
gosh, that just looked like a core memory.
Well, and that's the thing. And you think of all the commercials he was a part of, and all the appearances on local broadcasts he was a part of. I mean, there's so much about Mike Shannon.
Warm-up he was a part of.
Yeah, and winter warm-up, spring training. He was, we always talk about how obviously Stan Musial's the man. Red Shandy's is Mr. Cardinal. Mike Shannon's essentially Mr. St. Louis, because of just how much he meant to this community and how much he did, for this community. He grew up in it, around it, with it, and it's funny that Bing Devine even said that there was a chance that if he had stuck with football, he could have won the Heisman Trophy. He was so physically gifted at football.
And the guy started
playing for the hometown team.
Oh man!
What do you pull?
Yeah, he only got
played for Big Red.
Right.
Could have done a Neon Dion or wouldn't that have been something?
Bo Jackson, yeah.
What was the guy, Dave DeBusschere or whatever?
Brian Jordan.
Yeah.
Brian Jordan.
That would have been something. And the Big Red have done stranger things. I'm surprised they didn't draft him, but I guess he wasn't in college, so they couldn't.
Well,
they did draft Gibson at one point.
Oh, you know what? You ever see tape of Kirk Gibson of Michigan State?
Yeah, I have.
I always thought it was a novelty, and then I saw a tape of him. He was a monster on the football field. I only saw it a couple of years ago. I just thought, I thought that's nice trivia night novelty, and man, he was a player.
Yeah. Yes, he was. Yeah, Bing Devine was running the football Cardinals at one point, and he wanted Kirk Gibson.
Kirk Gibson, Joe Willie Namath, and they had some interesting picks that didn't pan out. And then everyone's favorite Dairy Queen manager, Kelly Stouffer.
Right.
I'm not going to report for training camp. I'm gonna manage a Dairy Queen in Nebraska. Greatest holdout of all time.
Oh yeah, Kelly Stouffer.
Yeah, I'm not going to work on the post patterns. I'm going to make blizzards.
Hey, come on! 1 year they.
I mean, I get.
82, they drafted EJ Jr. and Neil Lomax in the same draft.
Yeah, that's what gets you. George Boone. George Boone, I think, actually knew how to draft. I think he was told, okay, you got to get some flake. Don't want to sign in the first round. I don't know. But speaking of that, here's Shannon on the final 8 Big Red broadcasts as a color guy with Bill Wilkerson. It's a forgotten thing. And when I was introduced to Shannon, I actually talked to him, he had forgotten about it. He looked at me like I was crazy. As I like to say, right reaction, wrong reason.
I love that.
Yeah, he didn't remember. I think he's like Dan Kelly and Jack Buck. he probably could have worked hockey games and other things.
He really could have. And, when we talk about his links, when we had Ray on, we were talking about how he was one of those last links to like the old school broadcasting. And for me, I look at another interesting tidbit. So, Mike Shannon was on the 1964 team that won the World Series. Now, along with the recent passing last week, not probably just about 2 days earlier, of legendary ball player Dick Groat, and last year's passing of Kurt Simmons, and now Mike Shannon. There's only a handful of Cardinals players still alive from that 1964 World Series team. Just to name three off the bat: Julian Javier, Dow Maxville, and Bill White. And like I said, and then let's also not forget Tim McCarver, who had just recently passed away as well. Ed Spezio is also still alive. But the links, we talk about how much all the memories from the booth go. So do all those stories that are made, and all those memories are made. And with each passing player, those links to those historic teams, because 64 Cardinals are one of the greatest teams, arguably of all time, and definitely in Cardinals history. And and he was a part of the 67 and 68 teams as well.
I was going to say the 67 and 68 teams were probably better statistically than the 64.
And they were better statistically, definitely. So, it's just hard seeing these legends pass away. Because tomorrow isn't guaranteed, but we definitely just gotta cherish the memories we have of either watching them, listening, or both. Is there any call, Sean, in particular, that really sticks out to you?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, everybody loves the Kerry Wood one. Everybody, I think, like a lot of people, the one off of Lidge special.
Yes.
To me, I loved Get Up, Baby, and just like Rooney's Tuck Corner.
Get up, baby. Get up.
It's just like, isn't it just Superman radio serials? Like you'd have to say things, if a guy's going to fly, he's like, altitude 35, he's not going to say those things, but you have to, audience Superman Get Up, Baby. You just picture that, the humidity pouring into the seats. I loved it. And if it was a big moment, unlike these guys who do the same call that sounds the same way every time, just like Rooney, if it's a big situation, Get Up, Baby, just sound like a cowboy hopping onto a horse and saving the day in a Western. I loved that call. In fact, I was just thinking about Mike the other day, like 2 weeks ago, got behind a truck that had the plates, Get Up. And I thought, that's the play.
That's awesome.
That is great.
And of course,
definitely, in my book, that was the best home run call ever by any announcer, period. Cardinals or otherwise.
So was he the reason why you're in radio?
I would probably lean I'd probably lean on Jack Buck a little more, but and really both of them, soundtrack of my life, and between those two and Wilkerson, I got into it to be a play-by-play guy. I kept getting nudged out by politics and everything else. So I wound up being a news guy and doing ridiculous kind of things on a Howard Stern type show. But thank God that was pre-social media. Thank you, Jesus.
Like everything.
I'm telling you. Yeah, we'd like you to show up at a Halloween broadcast as a Hooters girl. Oh, okay. And talk to the governor the next day. Really? Okay.
I'm not trying to picture.
It's like a 70s variety. It's like a 70s variety show, but without.
I was going to say without the live studio audience in attendance.
Yeah, it was nuts. That's why I thought, I really should have on a microphone behind a diamond. But that, it's just, but it's funny, and couple of guys I used to work with, they always said that play-by-play kind of made for a good news guy because, news people get so stiff. Oh, today the legislature meets. Gavel will fall on the 187th session of the Missouri legislature. And with the supermajority.
What about Walter Cronkite? President John F. Kennedy is dead at 1 p.m. Central Time.
Yes. Let me see here.
That Fast Eddie's commercial is still replaying in my head, y'all.
Get a big Elwood, big boy.
Why am I not surprised?
President John Fitzgerald Kennedy passed away at Parkland Hospital. Yeah.
1 o'clock Central Standard Time.
Oh, that guy was special, wasn't he?
Walter?
I still got to get.
He's in Missouri. Yeah.
I got to go to that museum sometime in St. Joe. But the clout of that guy, can you imagine having a clout that guy, I mean, we've made all this fuss about Tucker Carlson, Don Lemon, and all that. Certainly moved the needle, but you compare their numbers to the sheer power of Cronkite. Oh, gee. Hard to imagine.
Who was the first person you heard when Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon? Walter Cronkite.
Yes.
A man, July 20th, 1969. A man has landed on the moon.
I didn't realize how much sports they did back in those days, too. And how colorful they were. Like the 1968 World Series. And let's go to so-and-so from St. Louis. And a guy had all these colorful things, and Bob Gibson is some kind of Greek god and all this other stuff. And I thought, boy, that was a neat era.
It was nice. It's nice having, those notable names that are like the soundtracks to our lives. And that's what guys like Jack Buck and Mike Shannon and, yes, even John Rooney are, especially to me, the soundtracks of our lives. And
well, that's what Tim McCarver was.
And Tim McCarver, I always... See, I never really minded the whole Joe Buck, and although I do, there was football. I don't know. Joe Buck to me is a staple of sports, as was Tim McCarver when it came to broadcasting. There's always things you're going to disagree with the broadcasters, but there's this, like, for me, I'll be honest, my all-time favorite is Al Michaels. And
do you believe in miracles?
Miracles. Yeah. Yes.
So I
will never forget that.
Just hearing Mike Shannon, just whether my parents are driving us on a road trip or we're on our way to my grandparents or a typical Sunday family dinner, or even there was times when I was a little kid and we were playing flag. I was playing in a flag football league or something. And if we're not having 103.3 KLU on for the Rams games with Steve Savard and DeMarco Farr, we're having KMOX on for the Cardinal games with Mike Shannon and John Rooney. So it worked out one way or another. St. Louis, the history of broadcasting is so deep and rich here.
4-3 us going to the bottom of the seventh.
Yeah. So... John, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you being on with us this evening, sharing your thoughts and memories.
I did it. It was those were special years, and Mike Shannon Steak and Seafood Restaurant. I brought up Eddie Goodell, and I had a joking reference, but that was a museum, and if you paid close attention, man, those prints told some, and people he faced and. Eddie Goodell print in the his buy or in the men's restroom, and it was Solon look in a locker room, and it was a reminder. And I don't think this was an accident. I think there was a lot of heart in that place, and it showed you that Eddie Goodell was a real person. Mr. 3 5/8, and he met a very sad end. Was mugged and killed. I just thought there were special times. And, I think they never went there thinking, I'm not classy enough. And it was nothing like that. I mean, the only class was class of baseball fans, but
He appeared on a major league diamond again in 1959 when the White Sox were were winning their pennant. He wasn't playing. Bill Veeck was doing another one of his stunts. He had a bunch of midgets disguised as Martians capturing Luis Aparicio, and Eddie Goodell was one of the Martians.
Mars Attacks 2 featuring Eddie Goodell. Well, it's something. You talk about being the soundtrack of someone's life. I had this, and I'm so happy that I could be the soundtrack of others' lives, and that's so important. The only problem is they're mostly in therapy. But anyway, back to you.
Geez. Well, Sean, we're gonna. I'm gonna tell you one thing, my friend. I know you've been on before, and I look forward to when I get the blessing to have you on the show again for an extended time. I just want to thank you so much for being on this evening, my friend. So,
all right. I hope I wasn't too much.
Oh, you weren't. You've been wonderful. And I'll talk to you later, brother. Sean Ballant, ladies and gentlemen.
Good to talk to you.
Ron, take care. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
I'm better in small quantities.
No, oh, man. Such an amazing guy. And, well, there we are. So, I'll be honest, folks, we're going to be wrapping. Yeah, we're going to be wrapping it up here this evening, folks.
I have a really quick question.
Go for it, man.
Does anybody know what's in the Mike Shannon's restaurant? Is there anything in it right now?
That is a good question.
Because I was thinking that they can maybe make it into like a historical site for him, or do something like tribute wise, because it's like right next door to everything down there, and it's in walking distance of Ballpark Village.
Right. So I just know that last year it had closed, and I don't know what more. The reason I think is because the reason it closed was because it was going to expand the Mike Shannon's grill concept that was going on.
Okay.
But the restaurant, I know the restaurant was also a big hot spot when the Blues were in the Stanley Cup and everything, and fans were crowding there like crazy. So we'll see what ends up happening. I just know one thing is that tributes continue to be poured out for Mike Shannon, and all deservedly so. Once again, we had mentioned he was a broadcaster for over 50 years for the Cardinals. And I love, and I put it, I remember in the article about what Mike Shannon said, and that he wants people to know that he enjoyed himself, and that he wanted people to know that he had a good time. And, that's all we can ask for, and we can be thankful for. And before we close it up this evening, folks, as always, I want to mention that we have the NAMI hotline at 1-800-950-NAMI. That is 1-800-950-NAMI, the largest grassroots nonprofit organization for awareness of mental illness. And also, we always put up the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. And for that, you dial 988. Understand, folks, that you're never alone in this world. There is always somebody out there that loves you and cares about you. And if you're struggling, it's just a phone call and a text message away. It's open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. And you also could be there for somebody else, to be those listening ears. So we're all on the same planet. We're all here for a reason. We just got to spread the love and stick by each other. I want to thank Ray King, the Cardinal Cowboy, and Sean Ballant for being on this evening, and of course Parker and Babs. It means a lot to me.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, folks. I'm the Maestro Jeremy Carp.
Happy Jeremy.
Life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading.